Chapter is arguably most valuable private company in senior health navigation.
We don't really do job descriptions. We try to figure out roles around amazing people.
$3 billion valuation, more than doubled in 12 months.
Corporate New York team is in office 5 days a week. Most important thing is to deliver an amazing experience at the outset.
Building a generational company in healthcare services is rare. Doing it in Medicare navigation, a category most institutional investors wrote off a decade ago, is rarer still. Chapter is the company that did it. 6 years in, 100 million ARR. Our revenue tripled last year on flat corporate headcount. $3 billion valuation, more than doubled in 12 months. A sitting US vice president and a Formula One on the cap table. Across from me, here in Chapter's New York office, is its co-founder and CEO, Cobi Blumenfeld-Gantz. Cobi, thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming. It's great to be here.
Let's start at the beginning. You started your company after seeing your own parents struggle to sign up for Medicare. What was their experience?
It actually started even before my parents were signing up for themselves. It started when my grandfather was living with my parents and me when I was in high school. My mom was helping her dad, my grandfather, sign up for Medicare, and just a very frustrating experience. I wasn't that close to it at the time. I just kind of observed it from afar. And then a few years later, when my parents were dealing with it for themselves, that's when I got more exposure to it. They were trying to figure out, should they sign up for Medicare? How do they do it? And they worked with a local Medicare broker and got really bad advice and missed a bunch of deadlines. And it was just an unnecessarily anxiety-inducing experience for them, on top of which they now have some penalties they have to pay consistently because they got bad advice. So the whole thing was just way more complicated than it needed to be.
Interesting, thank you. Before Chapter, you spent 5 years at Palantir on the US government team, some of the most technically demanding work in the Valley. What from that experience turned out to be generally formative for how you built Chapter?
There's very little subject matter overlap between what I did at Palantir and what Chapter does, but there are a lot of lessons and a lot of sort of how to build that were quite relevant. One was just thinking about problems in terms of data. A Medicare plan is an information good at its core. It's a data problem. And so we attack it as a data problem. And I think we're probably the only people in Medicare to think about the world in that way, which affects everything of how we build. So I think that's been a pretty large advantage for us. And then there's a lot of lessons about how to operate at Palantir, even though they weren't a small company when I joined by any means. I think there were 800 or 1,000 people when I joined, but they had very little process and very little structure. So I was still forced, and everyone at Palantir at the time was still forced to do a lot and learn a lot about things they didn't know anything about. And I think that broad lesson has been quite helpful as I've learned a lot in the founder journey, and as the whole team has figured out a lot about how to build.
A great experience, thank you. You built Chapter on the thesis that the industry had been getting wrong for 2 decades, that customer-first, unbiased model would outperform the commission-driven one. Where did you know you were right on the business, not just the ethics?
I don't know if there's a specific moment. It was more when we started growing. In 22, 23, we started to really grow pretty quickly. And that was a function of a lot of the enterprise partners we were able to get, who were great partners to us as we grew the company. That I feel like is when we really realized that our model was working and we thought would work for a long time.
The salaried advisor model is one of the most elegant structural decisions I have seen in healthcare services this decade.
Thanks.
Most founders would have taken the easier commission path. What was the conviction behind the call, and how did you get your early investors comfortable with the economics?
I didn't even think about it it was just kind of obvious to me and to us. It would be crazy for us to incentivize our Medicare advisors in a way that made them push certain plans on people that people didn't need. The whole reason we started the company was to make sure people make better decisions in Medicare. So it would have been totally antithetical to why we started the company to do the opposite thing. So I just never thought of it as like a risk. It was just the way it should be done. And so we just did it that way. I didn't really have to convince investors because I think there was a selection process both ways, where people who were interested in it would talk to us. People who maybe disagreed or didn't want to participate wouldn't talk to us. So that part wasn't that difficult to convince investors of.
I love this approach. Thank you. The national dataset chapter built 24,000 Medicare permutations, refreshed every year, matched against each member's doctors, drugs, benefits, budget, did not exist before you. Where did the architecture come from, and how has it evolved as the AI layer matured?
We started the company before the generative LLM boom. So a lot of our initial infrastructure was built the way you would have built a company in 2020, 2021, not the way you'd built a company in 2026. So we've fully transitioned to serverless, to a lot of tools that allow us to move very quickly and that have a lot of AI enabled features built in. So we did have to make that transition over the past couple of years when we're fully AI native now. But yeah, a lot of the initial infrastructure was sort of a prior paradigm of how do you build data models, how do you build ontologies in a confined structure, which we no longer are confined to.
Okay, thank you so much. Tripling revenue in a year with flat corporate headcount is a metric you usually see in pure software. For licensed advisory services, it is close to unprecedented. How did you design the operating model so AI genuinely compounds advisor capacity?
It's both a function of the AI as well as just business decisions. We think that the best way to build our company is by hiring quite slowly and keeping a very high talent bar. And so part of it is just if you hire slowly and keep a high talent bar, you have slow headcount growth. The other part of it is how do you support a lot of revenue growth with that low headcount? And so then you're forced to build technology that allows everyone to be more efficient and more effective. So a lot of what we do is automating things that people thought weren't able to be automated or that people just would throw humans at instead. And when you compound that and just consistently automate things that you otherwise would throw humans at, it just kind of creates this effect over time.
Okay, thank you. 5 times better retention than the industry average. In Medicare, that is worth more than almost any growth metric. What is it about relationship that members keep coming back to?
What I think most people get wrong in Medicare is most other companies, they really focus on retention as a separate sort of set of activities from the initial enrollment. It's okay, I'm enrolling someone and then I'm retaining someone. But the most important thing is to deliver an amazing experience at the outset. So we focus as much as we can on delivering an amazing experience at the outset and not thinking of retention as a crutch or as something that we have to go do after. And by focusing on the actual product experience, we're able to solve a lot of the root issues when they arise, rather than putting Band-Aids on, which is what a lot of sort of retention teams focus on. But that said, we have a lot of touch points with our members beyond the initial enrollment. We help them with a variety of aspects of their Medicare lives, whether appealing bills or claims, finding doctors who are in network. And a lot of that certainly helps retention, but it's not the primary driver. The primary driver is putting people in the right plan initially.
Great approach. Thank you. Raymond James and Wells Fargo are not trivial partnerships. Wells advisors do not let outside companies into their client workflow unless the value is unmistakable. How did those partnerships come together, and what does the enterprise channel mean for Chapter's next phase?
We got very lucky initially where a large RIA financial advisor was willing to take a bet on us and let us help some of their clients. And then we did a good job and they let us expand and introduced us to a lot of their clients. And then once we had one, we were able to get more and it kind of snowballs from there. But you're right, it's very difficult to convince financial advisors to refer an outside party for very good reasons sometimes. We're really heavily doubling down on our financial advisor and wealth manager partnerships. We've signed a bunch of new ones over the past few months. Referral volume is going up dramatically. And I think it's just because financial advisors now need additional services to be competitive, and that when they're trying to find new customers and new users, because money management has become more and more commoditized, so they have to gain an edge with some of these other products, and we help them with that.
Makes sense. Thank you so much. You have testified before the Senate Finance Committee on Medicare, a distinction very few CEOs in your category have earned, and 14 senators signed onto the recommendations. Tell me more about that experience and how Chapter's role in the policy conversation has evolved since.
I testified in 2023 about bad actors in the Medicare space. We were able to get a couple regulations passed as a result of it, which was really nice to see, to protect seniors from spam calls and protect their data from being sold. There's still a long way to go, though. There's still a lot of antiquated regulations in Medicare. There's still a lot of ways that the government could be empowering the private market to better support seniors. And so we're consistently advocating for that. I'm in DC a lot to try to get better rules passed.
Do you usually visit in DC?
Yes, I'm there a lot. Yeah.
Nice. The cap table reads as the study in institutional conviction. Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance on the early side. Donna Shalala, President Clinton's HHS Secretary, on the board. Al Gore's Generation Investment Management leading the Series E. Investors of that caliber do not converge by accident. How did that group come together around a chapter?
I think the thing that they all have in common, because of course many of them are on different political sides of the aisle, is that Medicare is actually a very bipartisan issue. Everyone needs Medicare help, and very few people disagree that that's a good thing. So that helps. And then two is we've been able to work with people as a function of some of their roles in the government or their exposure to the government. They understand the importance of solving these really gnarly, hairy government adjacent problems. I think that, again, that self-selects for people and investors who want companies that solve these real mission-driven companies. And that, I think, sort of naturally coalesces these people who otherwise wouldn't share a lot of their views into a place where they do share their views on this.
Thanks, interesting. Just curious, have you met mostly with them when you work at Palantir, or it was in different situations?
No, all de novo. I had not met any of them until I started the company.
Nice. Great result, actually. Series E positioned chapter as a trust layer between seniors and technology in the age of AI. That is significantly larger statement than Medicare navigation. Where does that vision take the product?
The reason the company is called Chapter is we want to help people live the best chapter of their lives. So really from day one, we've been focused on how do we help people navigate retirement, not just Medicare. Medicare is always the number one and number two most important thing that people talk about, and one thing that is very hard to get right. So we've been focused on that to date. But what we're really trying to do, as you said, is be the trust layer for people to be able to create this chapter of their lives that they want. So everything from their healthcare, which we're focused on today, to their financials, which we're going to be focused on, to community and social engagement, and to purpose. We want people to have purpose in this phase of life. So we're starting to think about all the different ways that we can help seniors navigate retirement.
Okay, thank you so much. Chapter is arguably most valuable private company in senior health navigation, and the capital stack lets you stay independent as much as you choose. For the institutional investors listening, how are you and board thinking about next chapter? Growth capital, secondary liquidity, public markets?
I'm not dogmatic about it. I don't know. I think it really depends on exogenous factors going on in the market. It depends on what's best for the company as we grow. Today, we're fortunately very well capitalized, so no near-term plans. And we're just focused on continuing to execute on the vision. I think it's hard to know what will happen in the future with any market, so we're just focused on what we can control right now.
Carrier commissions are the revenue line today. The Series E release mentioned expanding into adjacent finance products for retirees. How are you thinking about the revenue mix as the company matures?
Medicare will continue to be the vast majority of our revenue for the next 2 to 3 years at least, probably forever. But as we build these new product and business lines, we hope that they are able to grow as fast or even faster than the Medicare business has. And some of these business areas are even bigger markets. So in theory, in a few years, they could be larger than our Medicare business. But I imagine it'll take a little bit of time to get there.
Okay, thank you. As the category proves itself, the largest healthcare players, Optum, CVS, the major payers, will take more interest in this space. How does Chapter stay ahead as the category you pioneered becomes strategically important to everyone?
We've tried to build relationships with a lot of payers, really focused on how we are providing high quality members and how we are engaging with members in a way that makes the payer actually better off, incidentally, because we take a lot of the admin support off of them. They come to us when they have questions instead of to the payer sometimes. We're able to make sure that they have higher retention. So there's all these implications of what we do that are actually very positive for the payers, which we're now starting to help them understand. So it's been a very good relationship so far, and I expect it'll just get better as we become bigger. But I think people will start to realize the value of having this ongoing engagement with this population, which traditionally has been very hard to do. And I think as that continues to prove itself, will just become more and more valuable.
Okay, thank you so much. Cobi, how many people work in your company?
We have two sides of our company. So we have our New York City office, which is about 30 people, or a couple over 30. And then we have all of our Medicare advisors and member advocates, and they're all remote within the US. And we have about 150 of them.
Oh, wow, that's a lot. How many of them work remotely and how many of them work in office? What model do you prefer?
In office, almost all of the New York team, the sort of corporate New York team is in office 5 days a week. And then we have our Medicare advisors who work remotely from home.
How the hiring process looking at your company?
The actual interview process is pretty standard. We just talk to people, interview them, depending on the role, have them do a case, and then do reference checks. The thing that's a little less typical is we don't really do job descriptions. We try to figure out roles around amazing people, rather than having predefined roles and having people fit into those.
How to find amazing people?
It's all network-based, all referral-based. We ask friends who's great. We try to figure it out through networks, but we don't really use recruiters. We don't do outbound. We don't use agencies. It's all just our network.
This is an interesting approach. Thank you. Last question. 3 years from now, chapter is everything you want it to be. Paint the picture. The revenue line, who the members are, what the product does that it does not do today, and what Washington and Wall Street talk about this company.
Whew, big ambitions. I would love for us to be the default Medicare advisor for all Americans. I would love for it to just be in people's minds and branded as when I have a Medicare question or when I need to sign up for Medicare, I call chapter. I just know that. That'd be amazing. And then there's a lot of infrastructure and tech we're building so that we can expand to support all Americans with a very small team. A lot of that is AI based. A lot of it is other interesting technology that we're using and building to enable really high quality support for 70 million Americans. That's on the Medicare side. But beyond that, I would like us to be known as the retirement company. If you are thinking about retirement, if you are older, you are wondering, how can I live the best chapter of my life? And I go to chapter to understand that. I use my chapter card for all my finances. I get my Medicare through chapter. I find my friends through chapter. I get a job through chapter. I figure out where to volunteer through chapter. I want us to be kind of the super app for retirement.
And do you still plan to be focused on seniors or maybe expand to other ages as well?
We're quite focused on retirement. So pretty focused on helping seniors. There's no strict age that we're focused on, but broadly people who need support where there's a lot less support because they don't have their employer as their really central locus of their lives. They don't, for community, social life, income, finances, health insurance, all of that is kind of oriented around an employer in our society. So as they lose that, we want to be this new model of support for people.
Thank you so much. Cobi, few conversations leave me with the sense that the mission, the operator, and the market are all in the same place. This was one of them, and what we're building for American seniors matter at the scale few companies get to touch. Thank you for the time, and thank you for candor.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Thank you.